Hi everyone and welcome to Adobe Live. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we stream and create from today and pay respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. My name is Denise Chippendale and I'm super excited to be hosting today's special live stream with my friend and creative genius, Jeremy Lord. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it
How
going,
are
Chip?
you?
Good to see you.
Good. I'm super nervous but excited to be hosting today.
It'll be good. It's a super exciting stream we got actually today.
Yeah, the audience doesn't know, but we go way back many years,
Yeah,
collaborated together, worked together. So now adding a stream to our list of achievements.
that's right. Yeah. This will be super fun. I'm looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone joining in. If you are joining on YouTube, definitely pop in questions throughout the stream and we'll endeavour to answer them. And a big thanks to Joe and Flynn for making the magic happen in the background. But you don't need to hear from me. We're going to turn it over to Jeremy. Jeremy, what are we going to be working on today?
All right. So today I've got a little bit something different. So usually when I'm doing these kind of streams, I talk about my process and talk about layers and all that gritty stuff. I will be doing a little bit of that today, but what I really kind of wanted to touch upon is a little bit more kind of, I guess, why you would do a personal brief and what happens after you've actually done the work. So one of the big things that I kind of see happen with a lot of students is in their portfolios, there's a sense of like having a sense of like your own kind of touch or your own style, even though I'm not super keen on that word, mostly because it's a bit too kind of loose. Like, what is your style? Is it the technique that you use? Is it the medium that you use? I tend to kind of like to think about it more as what is the universe in which you kind of revolve.
Yeah.
And like if you take somebody like Tim Burton, for instance, like his style is not stop motion animation and it's not movie and it's not that. It's like the content and the worlds that he builds and he creates. That's his style, and it works whether it's live action or animation or children's books or whatever it might be. It all works. So style is a big kind of nut to crack, and definitely I think for an illustration, for an illustrator or a budding aspiring illustrator, I would say it's probably the most important thing to work on at first. But what I kind of wanted to touch upon today is how do you match that style once you've kind of found it to potential projects and giving yourself briefs that will lead to actually having those briefs come through in real life. And it's that saying of like, do the work you want to be asked to do.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to go through, I'm going to kind of like jump into the future a little bit here and show you guys this. So this is a project that I worked on a little while ago for a kind of synthwave band called Arcade High. So it's got like 80s retro kind of vibes, and they hit me up for an illustration for a t-shirt. And so what I've kind of got here is on Behance, we've got this long JPEG, this long piece of work with a whole bunch of different stages of this and a whole bunch of different assets that have been created for this job. And then all kind of laid out in a nice thing. So if I kind of click on this, you'll see this is a huge one long massive image that I created in Photoshop to kind of showcase that piece in the best way possible. And that's what we're kind of going to achieve or try and achieve today in these streams, is getting work that A, has context, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a sec, and B, could be potentially presented to a client with the hopes of like getting a job for them. Right?
Yeah, incredible. I'm already inspired. Just to interrupt you briefly, I've just had word that the Behance chat is live if anyone's joining live. So if you have any questions, pop that in and we'll keep an eye out and we can ask Jeremy all the hard-hitting ones. I'm putting you to the test.
yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so like let's jump in here and go like, all right, so my style is like, if I kind of open up my website here, you can kind of see like defining your style is quite important, I think, for approaching clients, because it's the kind of like elevator pitch of what it is that you do. And I'd say kind of like in an order of most present, I guess, or most important in my work, is this kind of idea of like old and new. So like mixing tradition with new, or like modern. And that then kind of, for me, is the door to like Japanese, which is, I think, probably one of the cultures that mixes this old and new, or that presence of old and new is like the most present. So you get like Shibuya, where it's just like neon cyberpunk town, but like go a little bit further out and it's temples and geishas and like super old tradition and folklore. So that works super well for me. And then obviously that leads to cyberpunk and all that, and anime and manga, which is a little bit more modern. So those are the kind of things that I like to work with: old and new, Japanese, cyberpunk, and then kind of neon colors. That's where I kind of like to go.
And do you think your study in traditional illustration has led you into that and making it easier to fusion the two together?
Yeah, possibly. So being like, it's a good question. Like, I think being trained classically, so I went to like art school, design school in France, was like, like, this is not art, you must make it like this. All that kind of stuff. It's like very classically trained, doing lots of like hands-on drawing. Weren't allowed to use a computer for the first year of the 5-year course, actually. Had to do everything by hand, including our graphic design and our typography, which was
insane.
But what it kind of gives a respect for the craft and stuff. And so obviously now I'm like digital, but there's probably a little bit of that too, kind of like crept back into this, is like mixing old and new. Is something that I really like to do. So let's jump in. Like, we're looking at this and kind of going, all right, what are the brands that I could work with? Obviously, like, I've done a lot of stuff for various like car brands or skate brands, beer brands, like Japanese, all that kind of stuff. There's been a range of different things that I've been approached to do for various clients. But one of the things that I'd really like to do, which I haven't had the opportunity to do yet, is to design for a snowboard company. So I'm a veteran kind of skateboarder. I surf as well, and so like skateboarding has kind of got what got me into design in the first place, in illustration.
Really?
All the designs on the bottom of the skateboards. Yeah,
cool.
Was super cool. Like, so much stuff happening there. And now that I kind of snowboard a little bit more, I'm looking at a lot of the designs and thinking like, there's something kind of missing from a lot of those, like not as much as kind of skateboarding. So it's something that I would really like to do. But when you kind of approach that, and like we're talking about some like broad topics here before we kind of get into the actual illustration side of things, which we'll get into, I promise, in a second. But when you kind of get into this, it's important to identify these things, because this is what will give you the brief that you're going to give yourself, right? Like, this is what will be the idea behind, I'm going to do this illustration like this for this purpose, right? I'm going to try and hit up these clients in this way for these reasons, and that's my brief. What could I write? Like, what brief could I write myself to give myself a frame of work behind the brief? And that's what I mean by context earlier. An illustration on its own is fine, it's cool, it's whatever. So you take something like this, for instance, which was an illustration that I did for a client who required a little bit of like a print for themselves, right? So this was a personal commission, not really like a brief, insofar as like, obviously they had told me like, this is our wedding anniversary, we love Japan, all that kind of stuff. So that obviously kind of went into that as well. But very different scenario to if I'm trying to working with a brand where there's brand guidelines and colors and fonts and all these kind of things I need to stick to. So I wanted to kind of use this as an example of like, what I would see students make this kind of mistake is they would put this illustration in their portfolio as is. And while like, I mean, I like this illustration, I think it's cool, I'm quite happy with it. It's just an illustration, and it's just kind of like a print. And so I think one of the main issues is you're putting this in front of a potential employer, be it like an art director at an agency or a client, or even like an illustration agent who's potentially going to try and match you up to these jobs. They're going to look at this and go like, all right, we kind of have a sense of your style, but there's no brief behind this. Like, you haven't shown us that you could work to a real live brief. There's no context behind it. Who's this for? Like, what is this for? Like, if this illustration, like, nice as it might be,
Yeah.
if this is for like a super high-end traditional like Nobu style izakaya, like Japanese place, then this is terrible. Like, this does not fulfill the brief whatsoever. On the flip side, if this is for some like funky new bar, like that's like opened in Sydney or whatever, and it's like Japanese neon inspired, blah blah blah, then yeah, this nails the brief, right?
Yeah.
So they need to be able to see that you can work to something. Like, what were you trying to do here beyond just be good at drawing? And that, I think, is really the key thing here that students kind of need to understand, is like, how do you take something like this that you've done for yourself personally and turn it into something that could speak to a brief and a client?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this and I'm going to match it up to a snowboard brand.
Cool.
Right?
Jeremy, before you go any further, we have two hard-hitting questions for you.
Oh, yeah.
From the chat, going back to sort of your experience and your love of skateboarding, have you ever designed a skateboard deck?
I have, yeah, I have in the past. Never for an actual client, never professionally. But I've dabbled in kind of like, you can go and buy like plain skate decks at different art stores now. They sell like plain skateboards at art stores, which I think is like,
that's really so cool. Wow.
Cool,
Yeah.
It's become like, it's become a medium, like a canvas or something, and people put them up in art shows.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then another
I've never
one
done it professionally, but
we'll add it to the list. Anyone out there that's watching, cheer me up. Another one, have you considered making deck designs for tech decks? I don't know, tech decks.
That's a good question as well. Yeah, like, I'm absolutely open if that's what we're doing, then yeah, absolutely. Like, why not?
We're going to get you these briefs. This is that in the universe. Then one personal question: have you chosen a snowboard just to annoy me? Because I'm a skier. And it's just hurting.
Absolutely. That is 100% my ploy behind this entire stream.
I knew I shouldn't have said yes to this gig.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, so continue as you keep going, and I'll keep an eye out in the chat.
Thanks. Just like doing this as a kind of a snowboard idea and kind of matching that up. So you can see I've got this sketch in here. And like I said, like, I'm not going to be going through like the sketching process. We've done this a few times on streams, and we probably don't have time to go through the whole actual making of the illustration and then laying it all out. But this is just basically kind of like a rough sketch that I've done, trying to do this kind of like mashup. And where this kind of stems from is this. And this is, I guess, the next big thing that I kind of want to touch upon is, all right, we're talking about snowboards, right? And so probably one of the biggest brands in snowboarding is Burton. So, I mean, I guess it could be tempting for me to be like, all right, well, I want to work with them, right? Because they're the biggest one. They produce like hundreds of snowboards every year. And this comes back to what I was kind of talking about before. Not that these are bad designs at all. Like, they're quite cool. Like, some of them are interesting, but do they match your style? Would an art director or an agency working with Burton, whether or not they have their own like in-house design or whatever, but would a creative working for or with Burton look at your work and go, yeah, you're a good match? And in my case, probably not, because this kind of stuff, and again, as I said, it's not that this is like bad or whatever. It's just not what, like, they wouldn't look at my work and go, "Hey, we could use you because it matches with what our brand guidelines and what our kind of design aesthetic tends to be."
Yeah.
So this is a kind of a poor match for me. Like, the likelihood of them agreeing to working with me and picking up what I've kind of sent them is almost like zero. and like maybe the art director would look at this illustration and be like, yeah, it's cool, like I like it, and maybe I'll buy a print off of you, but we're not going to put this on a snowboard because that's not what we do, right? And then same thing with like other brands. You kind of do a bit of research into like, what are the brands that would match up to this? And like Endeavor's a little bit more out there. But what I kind of stumbled upon is Capita, which is an American brand that do this series of kind of like Japanese manga anime kind of style illustrations that are a lot more kind of in line with what I would do. Like they would look at my work and go, yeah, okay, we could use that. We could do something like this, and kind of do a brief together. So that is, I think, probably like an important thing to think about as well when you're doing this, is not just go like, hey, any snowboard brand will do. And just like the question that came up in chat, like, would you do a skateboard brand? Like, I'd have to do the same thing with a skateboard brand. And I'd probably do something with a brand called Primitive, which do a lot of stuff around anime. They did a whole like Sailor Moon collaboration as well.
Awesome.
So that would fit more than most other skateboard brands. So that's probably going to be the most important thing in the context of this brief that we've set up ourselves. Right?
On that note, like, have you had briefs in the past that you've maybe had to try kind of tweak your style just to suit, like, to land that gig?
Probably a little bit. And that is probably like, the long answer for that is probably a stream for another day. But
cool. You're getting me back. That's good.
But yeah, no, there would be definitely like some room for like, can you use these colors instead of the ones that you normally use or whatever.
Right.
But again, that's got to be within reason. Like, the context that we're talking about here is a little bit different, where I'm approaching you with something, right? Like, you're the brand, I'm coming to you with the thing. You haven't asked me for anything. So it's kind of my job to pick and choose appropriately, so that when I come to you, you're not like, why did you approach me? This is not what we do. We've never done anything like this. Like, just makes no sense. But if you were to approach me, like if you were a brand that had seen my website and were approaching me, then, and this is where I think style is important for an illustrator in particular, to have an identifiable thing that you do, and not just be like this like cardboard cutout of like, I do art and I'm good at drawing, ask me to do a drawing, any kind of drawing. Like, no, it's good to have like a thing. If a client approaches me and says to me like, we really like your style, like this like geisha with these flames and these Japanese patterns and kanji and stuff, we really like this, but can you do it with calligraphy and with like a Middle Eastern Arabic style instead? It's like, sure, I probably could, but maybe you came to the wrong person.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I have to pick and choose my client properly, but if the like contact goes the opposite way, as in like you're contacting me for my job, for my work, then you need to like, don't walk into like a sushi train and go like, can you make me a kebab? No, that's not what we do here, right?
Love a kebab, but yeah.
and maybe it's like a sushi kebab. That sounds disgusting, but
oh wow. Putting that out in the universe.
Like, I think there's got to be a fine line of like, and I don't know where that line is. I think it's a very blurry line of like, how much do you change the thing to fit the brief? And at what point do you go, maybe this is not the brief for me? If there's too many changes that need to happen to your style, then it's probably not the right brief, I guess.
Definitely. And I think as like for emerging artists or illustrators out there, over time you'll learn that, where you're sort of putting your style out there, but how much are you going to sort of adjust that for the sake of a client? It's a big question. But continue creating.
And look, like, you know, like, to be like full disclosure, like I I still get approached every now and then for people like doing a quick job or whatever. Or it's for a friend. I'm trying to help out an art director who I've worked with many times before,
Yeah.
who's on a new project, and they've run out of time and they needed something, and it's completely not my style, but it's like, just, can you help me out, mate? And it's like, yep, sure, I'll do it. And it's a vector logo of something, and it's like, all right, look, let's just do this. It's not my style. I know it's not my style. It's just a job. I'm just helping you. So that stuff does happen. But in the bigger picture, it's important to think about, like, what is your menu? What are you telling clients? And what are they likely to ask you when you come in to the place? So with that out of the way, and that, again, like, important to kind of set the scene a little bit, to talk about this idea of context and briefing yourself and approaching the right client for the right reasons. Before you kind of get into this, because obviously you're going to spend a lot of time making this potentially for this client. So you want to put the most amount of chances on your side to land that potential brief. With the proviso, obviously, that you might not ever hear back from them at all, and like, whatever, then you just got a nice portfolio piece, which has happened to me before.
I think all of this will eventuate into something, like practicing this process is key. So it's not all lost if they don't get back to you.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely not. It's not wasted. Like, the worst thing that you're going to have is a nice portfolio piece, and that's a good thing to have, for sure. All right. So what I've got here is, again, like you can see, I've started with a sketch. I've gotten this like template of a snowboard that I created in Illustrator. So in Illustrator here, I've just kind of made these kind of like template snowboards. All I've done literally is I've just grabbed a photo offline and just done a pen tool around this using symmetry and just kind of using that as a base, right? So I've got different kind of boards in here. And then that's allowed me to create a mask in Photoshop and put that on there to kind of work to, right? So I've got this sketch. There's a bunch of different things happening in this sketch. As you can see, like, I've got this, like, this is the sketch of the geisha that we did before. The reason I haven't just popped that in here as is and kind of use the sketch, obviously this piece comes with a sketch attached to it. And I need to show you guys that in order to showcase it. There we go. So we've got this kind of sketch of this geisha. The reason that's important is you'll see kind of later on how that kind of works, and showing your work and kind of showing your sketches as I showed before. So I've got that kind of sitting in there. And then we've just got a bunch of different elements, right? So these hands are in here kind of like drawing, and that's kind of got like an anime style to it. It's like an anime frame added onto it. We got some shapes that we can create in Illustrator. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth from Photoshop to Illustrator. We got some patterns that I have pre-prepared and created this kind of like fish scale pattern in Photoshop. We got some type, and we got some just kind of added elements of flames to kind of make this like collage-y mashup kind of style of illustration. And then like push this kind of forward. So there's a bunch of different things that we can mess around with here. Obviously, like, you want to think about how this fits the format of like a skateboard or a snowboard, which is a really super fun format to work with. This like tall vertical is really quite cool. I think lends itself quite well to Japanese as well. Like this kind of idea of like
the vertical flow.
Like, absolutely. And so, like we can mess around with this and kind of play around. All this like is on different layers, so we can kind of see like, what if this type was like across the entire board, and then the illustration appears in the type. There's a bunch of different things that we can mess around with and play with here to make this. But let's start kind of fast forwarding in time here a little bit. Like, again, like I would just be sketching out here, messing around with different colors. And eventually that would lead me to something like this, right? So I've got a bunch of different things happening in here. This is by no means is this kind of like finalized or finished. And there's a bunch of different things that I'm still, testing out, trying to play around with. What's the layer order? How do I do what I need to do in here? And how do I kind of showcase this in the best possible way? So yeah, like there's still a bunch of stuff that could potentially be done here.
Yeah.
And I might kind of mess around and go like, all right, let's say I want this type to be a different color, so we can kind of tweak that, see how that kind of looks. And what I'm doing basically is I'm just kind of making this kind of artwork kind of live, and trying to see like what works in the best potential color here. I've just opened this up in the hue saturation window. Trying to make this type a little bit more visible than the black on that kind of base color. Maybe the base color is the issue here. So again, like, you know, we could be here for a while watching me kind of move sliders on this page and kind of figure out what's best for this particular illustration. The point here is not so much the illustration, or like how good it looks or how bad it looks, or how it's more just like, all right, what am I going to do with this now that I've made this? So let's say, for instance, I want to, like, I'm just going to finish off these shapes that I created in here in Illustrator. So what I would do in a scenario like this is I would actually grab a screenshot of this. So let me open up Illustrator real quick, and I'll switch back into Photoshop, and I'm just going to grab a screenshot of this because I'm going to use this as a template in Illustrator to create that shape on top of, just so that it makes sure that it matches. And then I'm literally just going to very simply copy and paste it into my Photoshop file. And that can then add it to, potentially add it, if I'm happy with it, to my libraries panel, which I'll show you guys in a sec. So I'm just going to edit my artboard here, make this a little bit bigger because we'll want this to be at size. Make this a lot bigger actually, because this screenshot's probably quite small. And
while you're doing that, just a reminder to everyone watching, if you have questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. You've got me, so I can ask him anything. So put him under the pressure.
All right, so like, yeah, here we're literally just making these shapes in Illustrator. Very like simple, easy process to kind of create this. And here we go. So again, this is like, this stream isn't so much about the actual kind of like, how do you do this thing or whatever. If you do have questions about that, obviously, like, stick them in the chat and I'll be more than happy to answer them. But yeah, we're moving pretty fast through the actual kind of creative process of this, in order to get through.
Yeah, a question on that. How much time do you spend on Photoshop versus other apps such as Illustrator?
I'd say probably about 90% of my time is Photoshop.
Wow.
The rest is Illustrator.
Wow, that's so interesting. I would have thought it would be a lot more split on that.
No, because I mean, it also depends on what I'm kind of doing, right? So if I'm doing something like this, then there will be a much higher incidence of me like doing Illustrator stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I'm just like that basic geisha illustration that you guys saw me do and that I'm using as the kind of the basis for this.
I love how you say that's basic.
like I mean, as in like the base of this illustration that I'm planning. Like that's all Photoshop. Like there's no Illustrator there at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Not necessarily because Illustrator is a bad program or anything like that. But
no,
it's just
really good.
It is. It's really
it's great.
Like I should potentially be using it more, because I get whenever I'm doing something like this, it's like, hey, we love this. Now can you print it? And it's like, oh wait, I didn't do it at size. And sometimes I can kind of shoot myself in the foot with that in Illustrator. But yeah, it's not necessarily like, it's more just like comfort, right? I enjoy working with Illustrator more. With Photoshop more than I do with Illustrator, and it feels more painterly. So that's what I do. That's literally like the only reason. And as you can see here, I've got like all these kind of like cyberpunk and kind of stickers and badges and assets that I've kind of pre-prepared that I can literally just grab from Illustrator and stick into Photoshop very, very quickly without having to kind of prepare this. So again, like this just speeds up a workflow like this where I can kind of do things like I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to copy and paste him into, I'm going to switch back into Photoshop, and literally you can just copy and paste from Illustrator into Photoshop, which is what I would tend to kind of do. And we can get rid of these guys and go Command V, paste. We want to probably we want to do this as pixels for now. Okay. There's a bunch of layer like options in here, but we'll just do pixels. Yeah. And that will paste this graphic into here. And what I can also do is I can add this if I want to. When I've selected that, I can add that shape to my library in here, and it will add that particular shape that I created so that I can just keep popping it back in to my work in there. So again, like if you have things that you know you're going to use quite often, it's a good way to kind of save on time. So you can see now that lives in here. And I can just kind of reuse it anywhere else. Yeah, and these libraries, obviously, because it's my Adobe account, like if I go somewhere else on another computer and log in, all of these will be available because they're all stored in the cloud.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a super, like, it's quite a powerful and
handy
thing to have. Yeah, for sure. So this is just me kind of, again, like I'm just rescaling this now, putting it in here. Yep.
There's another question in the chat, back to Photoshop versus Illustrator, on that trend. Do you prefer designing for digital over print?
That's an interesting question, actually. No, I don't really have a preference. Yep. I find probably more out of like a sense of style, I guess, that my style maybe matches more with print than digital. Like I tend to get more jobs in print than digital. Yeah. Whether that's packaging or anything else, that tends to be kind of the thing that clients ask me to do. So I probably end up working more in print than I do in digital, but I don't necessarily have a preference for one or the other.
Yeah, it's great.
So cool. So now we're kind of bringing this all in. Like, again, these are all kind of assets that I have kind of designed that I can kind of plonk in there. And then once I'm kind of happy with them, I can mess around with the colors of that. So let's go ahead and kind of switch that up, see what kind of plays. Again, like how long I would spend on this is really just kind of how long is a piece of string kind of question. It depends. Like this is quite detailed. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. How long roughly has this taken you to get it to this particular point?
Well, because this illustration of the geisha was already done, probably not that long. But if I was starting all of this from scratch, wow, this would be a huge task to like create all of this.
Yes.
At a level where I'd be happy with it.
Right.
And potentially to a point where I'd maybe ask myself, like, how badly do I really want to work with this client? Because again, there's no guarantee, right? Like maybe I show this to Capita and they're like, nah, thanks. Cool work, but nah, we're good.
That's right.
So yeah, like, and you know, like at the time you might still have like other briefs that are paying you to do work for them. And so it's like, yeah, okay, maybe I should do those. But yeah, just to show you quite quickly as well, if I wanted to kind of add one of these guys in here, like literally just drag and drop it and it will add it in as a smart object, which means that it's scalable.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Great. So whatever scale I've kind of made it at is what it will kind of stay at. And you can see this is now a vector smart object. So I can, like, if I've made it smaller, I can make it bigger again without any loss of resolution, unless I go over the max size that this was actually created at in Illustrator. Then I've then I'll have a problem. But yeah, it's just like these kind of things. That's why I have all these kind of stickers and stuff like ready to go, because I can literally just like actually just kind of drag and drop them and plonk them in there.
Plug and play. I love
Without
that.
having to mess around with stuff too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, like I've got a halftone in there because it's kind of like anime reminiscent. There's a range of different things happening in here that I can make or not make. But let's say, for the sake of argument and for the sake of moving things forward, that's it. Like I'm done. This illustration's finished. It's not, and it's kind of hurting my soul that it's not. But
I was going to say, it looks fantastic. Well done, you.
Never happy with your own work. Let's say that this is done and we're good to go, right? So, all right, cool. So we've got this illustration. It's looking nice and like, everything's looking great theoretically. Ready to kind of put this in my portfolio. So I could literally just take this and put it as is in my portfolio, but I'd kind of be missing a trick, right? Because there's a bunch of stuff that I've designed here that may or may not be obvious. And I think this is the other thing that I think a lot of students don't necessarily understand is if we go back to this one that I was talking about here, this illustration is like, obviously I've made the illustration, but because it's digital, there's this weird thing I think where clients don't know digital, generally speaking, right? It's a pretty safe assumption that your client probably knows about Photoshop and has maybe messed around with like filters or whatever else, but they don't understand the process of making an illustration in Photoshop. And I think what that means a lot of the time is they think that it's just super easy. It's just like, oh, you're just clicking buttons and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, if you're using like paint buckets and stuff, of course, like you don't have to wait for the paint to dry. It is a lot faster. But the core of the drawing experience is still there. And so that's why I was talking about sketches before, because for a client to see these makes all the difference, because then that brings it back into language that they understand, which is, oh, wow, okay, this is drawing. Weirdly for them, this is not drawing. So showing them the work that you created is really important. And that sounds really like stupid and obvious. Obviously, that's what the portfolio is for. I'm showing them the work that I created. But it goes a lot deeper than that, in the sense of like, you maybe like created a sticker that goes on the back of this jacket, or like in this instance, like I didn't create this logo from scratch. Like this was created by a guy called Signal Noise. I just made some edits to it, right? So I can't take full credit for this logo. They gave me this logo and said, can you tweak it and make it like 3D, blah, blah, blah. So I just made some edits on an already very good logo.
Right.
But if we're talking about like other kind of elements in here, showing your work, showing that you made the thing is really important. And whenever I show these kind of sketches to clients, I often get this thing of like, oh, do you always do a sketch before you do the final? It seems like a really stupid question, because it's like, obviously I do the thing, but actually like, no, it's not that obvious. If you don't know, it's not that obvious. It's obvious to you, but maybe not to them. And so I think that's where your work can become a project. It's not just an illustration, it becomes a bigger thing, right?
For sure. And it shows the storytelling of how you got to that end product, which is it's beautiful. Yeah,
absolutely. And it draws attention to different things as well. It showcases like how you do a particular kind of thing and what you maybe messed around with and played around with before you did it. So seeing something like this is like, like these sketches are like, oh, cool, there's some nice ideas behind this. And like you actually, I can see how this was made, right? And it's not just the final product. So I think that's really important. So what I would do in a scenario like this is kind of replicate this kind of layout and showcase, all right, I made this geisha, but I also made the flames behind it. I made these let's say, where are they? These kind of branches here, these like little kind of Japanese pines, like they were illustrated by me, and like that might be missed, right? Because there's so much going on in this illustration. So that could potentially be something that would get missed in that design. So what I'm going to start doing now is once that's all done, I can go in and say, all right, I've got a bunch of effects that I've put onto this snowboard to kind of like make it look a little bit more real. And obviously we've got the top end of the snowboard, top half of the snowboard as well, that we've kind of done. And here I could literally just kind of replicate some of the stuff that I have used before. So like, for instance, if I used this, not that one, let me lock this guy so I can make a selection properly, this type. So I'm going to duplicate this type. I'm going to drag it up into this top layer here and move him over to there. So like I can just take some of the elements that I created over here and replicate them over for my design over here. That's just going to be like a little graphic added on kind of piece, and probably a good idea as well to chuck in the client's brand. Like that's always a nice touch.
Nice little nod.
Yeah, like make them a little bit happier. So I've got this logo that I grabbed from one of their previous designs.
Great.
And just kind of roughly copied. That's got a little bit of like a Japanesey vibe to it. So we can plop that in here. Maybe we want a different color for the top. So again, like, you know, I could spend quite a lot of time with this and kind of seeing how it all kind of plays out, adding different things. Ideally, you'd kind of want some of the elements from the previous snowboard to kind of replicate over. But yeah, let's not kind of focus too much on the quality of my designs, but like what we're actually going to do with them.
Yeah. Well, you've had a shout out. Someone's complimented going, wow, this looks nice. So well done.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're doing great.
Okay, so let's begin. Let's go in and I'm going to make a new document. And I'm going to go in and say I want this to be, we're going to go with a resolution of 150 because this is for screen. And we are going to say, let's go with 1500 pixels wide. Height doesn't matter because we're just going to add to it as we go. All right. So we've got this image and I need that to be bigger. How I like to make my images bigger is I could do this from this panel and just add like pixels to this and just make it like more height and just type a bigger number in here. But I can't be bothered with that. Who can be bothered with menus? I just go to my crop tool and literally just make my image. Like crop tool works for making stuff bigger. It doesn't just cut into your image, right?
Good tip.
So I've just added that in there like that. I'll probably need more space. Doesn't matter. I can just keep adding it as I go. So let's go a little bit to town on this. I'm going to save as well. Good idea to save this kind of stuff as you go.
Yes, I've had many horror stories on that.
Yep. And let's start thinking about, okay, what's the layout of this going to be? So I probably don't really want to spoil the snowboard designs just yet. Like that's what I'm trying to showcase to the client. But I want to build up to that a little bit in my portfolio, right? Like I don't want to just come out with like, here's what you wanted me to design. Here's the main event. Because then anything after that might not get looked at.
Right.
So it's one of those kind of like presentation things of like, if you're presenting a logo to a client, obviously you need to talk about the context. You need to go through some stuff before you just show them the logo on the front page. And I do see some of my students doing that every now and then, where it's like presentation starts with the logo. And it's like, your client might not be listening to anything past that because you already showed them what they were here for. So they don't really care about anything else. But also you might be kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you haven't kind of set it up properly. You haven't shown me the right context. So let's start with my illustration of this kind of geisha. We're going to start with that, and I'm literally just going to copy that and paste it into here. Nope, that's not the right one that I wanted. I obviously didn't select the right layer. There we go. Copy, thank you, and paste. I can get rid of this mask as well for now.
Awesome.
And we're going to just go and say, all right, I'm going to rescale this a little bit. And I actually probably don't need it to be a smart object for now. So smart object is kind of cool because I've got it in as a smart object right now. So if I open this and double click on this little smart object panel, you'll see it'll open up my geisha from before as a different kind of file. And what that does is it basically, like, all my layers are in here because I've copied that kind of thing. But let's say that I wanted to, like, I don't know, I'm going to add like a visor onto the illustration, right? It's like, oh, that looks cool.
Awesome.
If I save this, because it's a smart object, Photoshop will update this particular illustration, and it's not done saving yet. So it's going to take a little time.
The suspense. We're building it up to it.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go, updating smart objects. And it just means that, like, rather than having to redo your entire mock-up once that's done, if it's a smart object, when you're doing stuff like this, that's like an amalgamation of different pieces of art that you've created, having those come in as smart objects means you can edit them without having to redo the entire mock-up after.
That's brilliant.
Having to replace it, having to do all of that kind of stuff. That's really annoying, right? You don't want to have to spend your time doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's let me undo. I'll just leave it as is actually for now because it'll take some time. But I don't need this one to be a smart object, so I can just right-click rasterize. The reason I'm going to do that, like, you might say, like, well, why take that option away from yourself?
Yeah.
Mostly because it's going to chew up a lot of memory and kind of RAM on my computer, having that be a smart object when I don't need it to be. So yeah, just rasterize it. And if you do need to redo it, then so be it.
Awesome.
All right, so let's start by thinking about how does this kind of get put in the best possible way. So I'm going to do this. And potentially, I'm a fan of, I don't need two of those. I'm a fan of kind of putting things, maybe I want to put her inside a circle like this. And we're going to fill that with black. Okay, and then undo. So we've got this, just this kind of like shape in here. I might also make a selection of that and just put that behind and fill that. So we got a little bit of a shape there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like to just kind of make these things kind of stick out of a mask. It just makes them, gives them a little bit of a sense of like 3D.
Yeah.
If you kind of see what I'm doing. And no, I don't want you there. I just want that one. There we go. So that's cool. Maybe put like a little stroke on that too. There we go. Like that. That's quite cool. I like that. And again, we can change the color a little bit later on. Let's make sure that that's in the middle. Nothing worse than having something be just slightly off middle.
Yeah.
It's quite annoying. So that's like a teaser, right? That's like a teaser of like, hey, you like this illustration? There's more to come, right? It's not revealing the whole game right out the gate. And I put this in a group. And then maybe we can start thinking about other things that we can grab. So let's maybe grab something like this. We're going to grab this guy and bring him into our thing here. And we're going to save this as well. Here we go. And that's going to go into, we're going to call this mockup. PSD, good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show a bunch of different assets that I designed for this, right? So we've got this thing that I made. What else have we got that we can kind of showcase? We got these clouds, so they're quite cool. So let's grab them and put them in here. And we can just do a little kind of like 3 or 4 side-by-side little assets and things that I've designed to kind of show, like, see all these things? They're just kind of like the ingredients of what I've kind of put in here. And just kind of so you can see kind of how cool they are, I guess.
Mhm.
And it just kind of dresses my illustration a little bit more.
Yeah.
I end up with probably quite a few layers as I'm doing this, but that's all right. It's okay. That's all good. Let's change the background color a little bit too. Let's go in with this. You'll see me do this quite a bit, where it's just like I'll just smack a random color on there and then figure it out later.
A well thought out color.
Clearly not. Clearly not.
A question on the layers front. Are you a stickler for labeling and all that normally?
No, but
I'm catching all of you out.
You just like, yeah, you have to be, simply because it's like, otherwise, like, come on, like, yeah, it's too much.
But if students are listening out there, it is important to
like, you can see I've named most of these layers to something. Like there isn't a single untitled layer on this. Not so with the thing that I'm doing now. But yeah, like, it's a pain in the butt to do. But
you're not selling yourself here. But you're being real.
It's something that you'll definitely thank yourself for doing. Later on, for sure.
The same with labeling file names. Final
100%.
1, 2.
100%. It's just like, once you start having like as many layers as I will sometimes have on especially on stuff like this, where it's very kind of like collagey based, and it's a lot of different things happening, a lot of different elements and aspects of this going in. Like, you have to name your layers, otherwise, welcome to hell.
There we go. That's another stream for another day.
Like, if you are working, like on this one, obviously I'm working by myself, but if you're working with other designers, like someone else might have to look at your file and like see your shame. And it's just like, well, see your shame, but also like, if they see something like this and it, like, I can't make sense of this. Nothing is labeled. Nothing is clear. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And that's no good. Like, that doesn't make you good to work with.
No.
So don't do that.
Okay. You've heard it here first.
Cool.
Don't do that.
So we've got a bunch of, like, now we've got this. It's like, basically what we're doing here, you think about it like this, is we're showing the ingredients of the dish. Like, this is the final dish. Everything in here is just like, that's the dish. That's what you're going to get. But what I'm doing first is I'm kind of like hyping it up by showing you the ingredients that I'm going to put into this. So you haven't seen the full dish yet. I'm just showing you, like, cool, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do it like this. And that will kind of like coalesce into the final dish. But at that stage, you'll be like, wow, okay, cool. All these things were so awesome, and they all came together like this. And then I can show you kind of how it's made, right? So we can keep kind of going on and kind of adding a whole bunch of different things in here. There's a bunch of different like assets and things that we could bring in. So let's bring in maybe this like sacrelief. So we've just kind of built a little bit, like, I guess maybe we could call this like a mood board of the elements that are in here. Like, we've got some traditional Japanese, we've got some cyberpunk, we've got a bunch of different things like floating around on this illustration. This is just kind of like setting the mood. Then we can get into potentially, let's say, let's maybe now it's time to kind of do the big reveal and showcase this actual like snowboard. So I'm going to duplicate this, maybe. Yeah, let's give it a shot. And I'm going to smash it down into one layer.
Yep.
and apply a mask to it. And now I can just bring this into here.
We
Like
have a question on the library front. Do you tend to work with your asset library or create new illustrations per project?
A bit of both. So where there's things like patterns, like these sakura leaves, like as you saw, like I've got two different types. I've got something a little bit more graphic and something a little bit more kind of, I guess, realistic looking.
Yeah.
It's a good question because I think it just depends on the client as well. Like if you use these too much every time, everywhere,
Yeah.
then clients would potentially rightfully, I think, get maybe a little bit annoyed that like you're just using the same
This
stuff
thing,
that you use for
yeah.
another client. Like,
Yeah.
what am I paying you for?
Mm.
So there is like a within reason. It's a good question because it's like you want to obviously like, you know, like if I created a brush that allowed me to draw like sakura petals, obviously that's an asset that I developed that I can use in a bunch of different ways for different things. Like, is a client going to get annoyed at me because I use the same round hard edge brush that I did on another job for his? Like, no.
Yeah.
So there is a middle ground. Again, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know the actual end answer to that. But I think it's about just using your common sense.
Yeah. Within
try-
moderation.
yeah, like so. And often like I'll do something and it's like maybe this like sakura flower doesn't really fit with the style that I'm doing. Like I need something else, and in that case I'll develop a different thing, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you need to develop that extra thing because it doesn't really suit what it is that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I think just like common sense prevails, hopefully, and
common sense prevails. So you've got some great quotes coming out of this live stream. Hopefully.
And yeah, like just make your, like, the assets are there to make your life easier, but you also need to do the work that you were paid to do by the client, and making sure that that kind of comes across in the best possible way.
Yes.
So yeah. So here we go. We've plonked our boards in. I'm going to put a little bit of a drop shadow on that just to make them look a little bit more realistic still. Get a bit of distance on them just so that they're not kind of like too obviously graphic. Here we go. And so that's our kind of like big reveal of this. And now I'm going to need a little bit more space again because I want to start putting in my sketches potentially.
Yeah.
So I need to fill this a little bit more. And let's bring in some of these kind of sketches that we did. I can hide all of this.
I like how you said. I like how you said we. Like, yeah, I helped.
Well, you know.
It's team effort.
Yeah. Pop this in here as is. And let's decrease the size a little bit down to this. So again, like the reason I'm showing this is, like, as I said before, like clients usually, like in my experience, clients like to see how the thing is made that you made for them. It's a kind of like, it's a process of getting a better appreciation of the artwork itself. And kind of getting a bit of a sense of like a flavor of like, all right, this was made for me, this is bespoke.
Yes.
I really understand how this kind of works and how it was put together. And so yeah, I think that has tremendous value when you're kind of doing this thing. Is like, I always think of like MasterChef, and the format of that show and kind of how it works is, if you took out the making of the dish, it's a boring show. Like
Yeah.
you're just watching some people get a brief, and then it cuts, and then you see the food that
The
they,
plate.
and then you get to watch people eat the food and talk about how it tastes and that you don't know.
Yeah.
But the point of the show is like, oh wow, okay, this person used like chopped chives or whatever instead of onions. It's like, that's really smart. Okay, that's a good tip. And it gives you a better appreciation of that particular piece. And so yeah, I think with this kind of stuff, it's really nice to kind of think about that and to think about like how do I kind of best show the process and make the client see the work that I have created for this in the best possible way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's all about that journey that you've taken, and then selling yourself, putting your best foot forward. So the more you can show that process, they're going to eat it up.
Totally. And it also, like, it's a win-win, right? Because it gives you more stuff to put in that portfolio page that otherwise wouldn't really be there. So yeah, it's totally like, it's absolutely something that I always recommend doing. A lot of people always have that question of like, would you recommend showing your work or anything like that? And yeah, I would always say yes, absolutely. Show your work, showcase that.
We have a technical question on the size of this JPEG. Are you worried about that size, as it's quite long?
Yes, but
a later problem.
And, I mean, this is why I made it at 150, and this is like at the moment, it's like 2 A4s big. It's not that big. Obviously, we're gonna smack a bunch of layers and everything, but because this is going online, it doesn't need to be super high res. But yeah, I mean, you can have a bit of a thought about like, how is this actually going to work for me? Am I
for sure
actually, like, do things with this file without melting my computer? And that's a fair question. And sometimes
that rainbow spinning wheel that we all hate to see.
And that's why you got to save. But yeah, sometimes I end up with like gigantic files and think, oh man, I really need to just start working in Illustrator instead of always doing Photoshop. But yeah, look, it's just, I think it's just part of the process. So
we have a question on when creating this portfolio piece, what consideration do you make when it comes to writing text? Any particulars that you think should always be mentioned?
I'll get to that in a sec, but
cool. Stay tuned.
I'm really bad at doing that. I'm really bad at like writing about what it is that I did and why. Particularly, I think if this is like a personal brief, or like it's a brief I've given myself, it can be tricky because I think it becomes this idea of like, what do I say? Like, I made a thing. It's my work and blah blah blah. And look, I'm gonna say something potentially like controversial.
Oh, here we go.
I don't know that all work requires some like expanded explanation of what it is and that kind of stuff. Like, I think, like, you were asking me about my style and my work before, and like what are the main kind of pillars, and I went into this whole thing about like Japan and folklore and culture and old and new and all that, which is important in regards to that particular question, but may or may not be as important with regards to this specific brief. And so there is definitely, I think, times where it doesn't require an explanation. It's just, that's just my work. Like, there's not necessarily like an idea behind this. It's just, I did what I did, except I did it for a snowboard company.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes maybe less, it's going back to that saying like less is more, right? Let the work speak.
Yeah, totally.
When, if you're struggling to say the words. let that jump
We
out.
were talking about this recently, actually. We went to, there's a Sydney Biennale on, which I know you've been to as well,
Yeah.
which has some really cool stuff. But as with all, like, I guess, contemporary art, sometimes the explanations can be a little bit kind of far-fetched
Yes.
in some instances.
Yeah.
And it was funny, there was one, I'm not going to say which one, obviously, because I'm about to badmouth this
Yeah,
one.
let's not. We want friends. We want lots of friends.
We're like walking around and kind of looking at these pieces and, you know, thinking like, this is cool, that's cool. It's like a lot of them are like, oh, I'm not too sure. But there was one in particular that I thought was like, hey, this is so cool. It looks really cool. It's really nice for the setting of this like old power station. And then I read the explanation and it totally just ruined it for me, because it's
Oh,
like
really?
it went into this like long-winded thing about stuff. And I was like, I don't see that at all.
Yeah.
I don't think that reflects that at all. And so now that I know that's what you were trying to do and that's how you tried to like explain it,
Wow.
I really don't like it at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is quite sad. So
That is quite.
yeah,
It's quite brutal.
it is a little bit.
It kind of brings me to like wine labels when you see the descriptions and you're reading them. It's like no, like some of that it's really turned up. You're like,
and people get caught up in that, I think.
Yeah.
And just.
But we love copywriters, so let's just put that out there.
Yeah, and look, like flavor text is important, right? Like you need to sell the thing.
Yeah.
But it can go too far, I guess. Correct. Is the point that I'm making. Like sometimes it's not like, you know, hand-grown Himalayan mountain rock salt. It's like, no, it's just salt. It's just salt.
Pig salt.
Yeah, that's it.
Just to give you a nudge, we have about 20-ish minutes left. So,
cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
No worries.
All right, so cool. So this is coming along kind of nicely, like reflecting, like, you know, doing a bit of a reference to some of the patterns in the piece to kind of break up that sketch to put it on a white background. Just helps a little bit kind of with the flow of this and with working in that sense. So the sketch is taking up actually quite a bit of space in this, and that's fine. That's okay. Like I'm not unhappy about that. There are other things that I need to feature in here as well, like this little illustration down here. So this is where I'm going to start kind of maybe like picking and choosing things that I need to kind of put in to showcase in the best possible way. So this one might need to come in. Let me copy these two, paste them in, and then I can merge them in here. So again, this is like, you know, just me, and maybe this one needs to come up a little bit higher, and so all of this needs to move down, and so this is where I need to maybe think about naming my layers, because I don't know what's what.
Oh, that advice is coming back to haunt you.
Yeah, it's coming back to bite me. Absolutely is. What am I trying to do here? Yeah, grab these two, drag them down, and I need to grab that as well. What's this? What's this thing? See, this is the problem, right? It's like, what is this layer?
Name your layers.
And there's nothing in it, so I can delete it. Yay! Yeah, but like, yeah, again, like, yeah. Name your layers. Do yourself a favor. Don't be like me.
I'm getting flashbacks to university days of getting in trouble for not correctly naming.
But I guess when you're doing this and you're trying to like go a little bit faster with all of that, like
we're giving you some time pressure here, so
excuses.
We've got some quotes being pulled out. What's this thing? Jeremy Lord, 2024. Yeah,
what's this? Exactly. What does this thing do? Oh wait, it doesn't do anything. One of the ways that you saw me doing that, actually, where it's like I'll go to that layer and hit Command T, and that's my like surest way of checking if there's anything on that layer, and if there isn't, then
Control T. There we go.
Yep.
Got the tips and tricks today.
Yeah, if you.
Yeah.
Cool. So. Yeah. And so, and like you can see now, actually, that what's kind of happening is an interesting thing where it's like the snowboard is probably like one of the like smallest things in here.
Yeah.
Which maybe isn't like the best way to go. Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. and like bring this, like it can overlay on top of the sketches. That's cool. That's all right. Like no problems at all with that.
Yeah.
And just kind of bring that work a bit more front and center in the piece.
And so once this is sort of all ready to go and you've uploaded it to Behance, what's your process in terms of hunting down the client or your potential client? What's that? How's that go?
So obviously, like what I would do as well is like I'd use social media, I'd use all of that kind of stuff. But having this up means, and this like calls back to this question of like, what's your file size? Like, if it's too big, is the client going to open it? Are they going to be bothered to download it? All those perfectly fair questions, I think, of like, no, I'm not downloading this 60 megabyte attachment from this person I don't know.
Yeah, who is this guy? Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, so having that be online means I can send them a link. And if it's a link that looks like it's a Behance link, like it still might just go like, I'm not clicking that. But it decreases the chances of them doing it, and it's just a link that lives online. You can send it out to people a lot more easily.
The legitimacy is there.
But what I would also do quite a bit is just social media, like grab all these kind of little bits and pieces, right? So let's take this back in. So I'm gonna actually just grab this guy. And this is where I can start to kind of dress this page even more. And let's make a group here because we're going to need to be a little bit clearer on our things. All of these guys are the same group. Bang. And no, I don't want you to be in that group. I want you to be in that group. Thank you. Now we're naming a group, which is easier than naming individual layers.
I see. Yeah.
Little.
Now you're backtracking.
Right, so what I would do now with this is thinking about like drawing attention to different parts of this illustration and how to kind of best showcase that. So what I would do is basically make little kind of selections and go like, all right, let me grab these. And this is what I would do with like Instagram, right? Where it's like, hey, look at this bit, look at that bit, and make a multi kind of page, multi kind of illustration piece that can then be shown a little bit more appropriately and kind of highlighted in different ways. So then
would you tag them on, if it was on Instagram?
Absolutely. That would be like, that's the first port of call, right? Is like tag the client in it, which, like is not a guarantee of it actually working, but that's the whole point, is like tag them in the thing and make sure that they see it and make sure that they see it for the right reasons and like in a way that's going to be the best possible outcome for you. Tag them. If you can, obviously, like try and find an email that they may or may not have that could potentially work. Like one of the things I often say, it's like job hunting. It's this thing of like, as much as possible, you want to try and have the person you're contacting needs to be like an actual person, and not info at or reception at or whatever else, because it just
gets lost in the void.
Person, it might get lost and might get, which is it's tricky to do because maybe you might not know the art director's name, you might not even know if there is an art director, and if you do, like what's their email, like they're not just going to give you the email. So that whole kind of system is quite difficult to work around, but there are ways of doing it, and ways of at least putting all of the chances on your side, so that if your work does get seen by that person, you've done it in the way that's going to be the best, like give you the best chances of them actually going like, yeah, this is cool, let's pick it up, let's work with this person and do this particular work. So it's all about like maximizing your chances and opportunities on something like this, for sure.
And on that note, on the social media front, we have a question about, would you make social formatted specific versions of this file?
As in like phone and square tiles for Instagram.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And like this adds, quite a bit of work to your workflow, right? Like everything I'm doing now, like this is my illustration finished and it's taking me hours to do it.
Yeah.
And now I'm spending another like hour and a half just like putting this together.
Yeah. Do you find this process slightly painful?
I don't love it.
Yeah.
But it's also like, so again, like I went to a graphic design school. So the graphic designer in me kind of gets tickled by this a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't love doing it for social media because it's just like, now I got to do this. It's like,
totally. Yeah.
And it is a fair bit of extra work, and I find it can be a little bit annoying.
Yeah. Have you dabbled in Adobe Express yet?
I haven't, no, and I've seen a bunch of videos around it, which I'm just like, oh man, okay.
I think that's going to be a savior going forward. Yeah.
I definitely need to look into that.
Yeah, totally. We have one cheeky question as well. Is talking to the program a secret ingredient to your creative process? I think that's making a shot at you talking to, you talking to yourself pretty much. Do you find that helps?
Look, it doesn't hurt, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think it's like everything. It's just a way to keep the mind like occupied while you're doing the thing, and like,
totally.
It's
making
like
sure every layer is cooperating with you.
Asking a layer like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you here? All that kind of stuff. Like, absolutely, it's a funny question, but like I sometimes get kind of called out on that stuff and get pulled up. Like, you're really talking to your layers and stuff. It's like,
it's making this stream a lot more animated, so we appreciate that. We have just shy of 15 minutes to go, so I'm being your timekeeper for today.
Thank you, because otherwise I would.
We'll just keep going. We could have a 24-hour stream, which I don't know. 100%. Some people might enjoy that. I think I might get a bit boring. We are entertaining.
What are you saying? Are you saying my work's boring?
No. I'm backtracking on that
one. Cool. Yeah. So again, this is just me. Like, this is graphic design, right? As I said, like this is now, like, purely just me messing around with this and doing this as a kind of like a graphic design idea to showcase it in the best possible way. And already, like, you can see, like, we've got quite a lot happening. And if you were doing this for a portfolio, by the way, like, obviously I'm doing this as one giant image for Behance, but if you're doing this as a portfolio, like, this is where I was talking about, like, things become a project where instead of that one piece, and it's one of the questions I think students have the most around, is like, oh, I only have like 3 pieces in my portfolio, it's not enough. Yeah, because you only did a page per piece, because you've literally just done it. Here's an illustration, here's a logo, here's a thing. It's like, you could have 3 pieces in your portfolio and have your portfolio be like 40 pages long, which is huge for a portfolio.
Yes.
Because, as I said, like this is one page, these symbols are another page, this is another page, these boards are a page, this sketch is a page, and like these little like cutouts and like, hey, look at this, look at that is a sketch. I used a font to do this, but if I'd actually crafted this by hand, that type deserves its own kind of respect and kind of put into there. So that's another page. So all of a sudden, this like piece that we started with, which was, I was saying, is just this piece, becomes a massive project that you can show lots and lots of stuff in. that's really going to keep the client engaged.
Yes.
And kind of do it this way. Obviously, I'm doing it a little bit differently here, and like we can use Behance and the fact that it is digital to set this up in a more interesting way. And like, as I said, like this has gone from like an illustration thing to a graphic design thing, but like that doesn't have to necessarily be a problem.
Yeah. Any other tips on Behance? Like once you upload, like, do you have some secret ingredients in terms of tagging or descriptions?
No, I'm actually quite horrible at that. So if anybody else has secret tips on that,
Okay.
I'm happy to take them. Yeah, tagging stuff on Instagram or Behance is absolutely not my superpower.
Right.
I think I'm quite terrible at it, actually.
God, you're really selling yourself today.
I'm not here to sell myself. I'm here to sell the work, which is not true. Like, absolutely, you should be selling yourself as well. But
well, I'm going to sell you. What's your website? Is it jeremylord.com?
It is jeremylord.com.
So there we go. If anyone's interested, go check it out, and check out Jeremy's Behance.
My Behance and my Instagram, which is just at jeremylord_. Those are the places I will be on like the most frequently.
Yeah. Well, you're having a break in the next few weeks. You're heading to Europe.
I am, yeah. I'm going away.
Well, should people be following? Will we see some holiday snaps where we'll get very
Nah, not from me.
Cool. So purely professional.
Not from me. Yeah, I mean, I might do a few things, but yeah, no. It's like my Instagram is for my illustration, not for pictures of my cat or other things.
Hey, yeah. We have 5 minutes to go as well, but we did have another question. Would you say that the approach to your portfolio project is the same as your website? It's a great one.
Yes, absolutely. They're exactly the same. Like what I'm doing here, this image that I'm creating here, I would put on my website, I would put on Behance, I would try and use up as many of these things as possible and reuse them for my social media and anything else like that. Absolutely. Like this process would be that. And I think it's like the biggest thing here is, your portfolio when you're graduating, your diploma means nothing. Like nobody really cares about your diploma, because you could have done 6 years and be absolutely terrible, or you could have done 6 weeks and be an absolute genius. So nobody really cares about that. That's not where the proof of your skill is. Your proof of your skill is in your portfolio. So take the time and like as you can see, like this takes time. It absolutely does take a huge amount of time, but it's worth it. Yeah, absolutely worth it to do this, because it showcases your work in the best possible way, and just means that you're going to put all the chances on your side. If what you're trying to do is to get a client's attention, then absolutely it's worthwhile doing. Awesome. Sure. And then as you can see, just wrapping up, we'd put like a little logo of the company X, my logo.
Love that.
That lives at the bottom. There could be as well, and we haven't kind of spoken about this, but I could potentially just put something in between here where it's like some text to explain what the idea is. And that would probably kind of sit nicely there. Great. And so there we go. We've got like a nice kind of layout of a page. Let me put this nice and full screen.
It's awesome.
You can kind of see it. With all of the work that we've done, showcasing the best possible way, and really giving like a bit of a taster before we reveal the big piece, and then kind of showing how it's made, and then drawing attention to it. And then there you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for spending an extra long session with us, and thanks to everyone joining the live, and if you're watching the replay, it's great to see you here. Check out Jeremy's other sessions on Behance and YouTube, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, likewise. We'll probably see you on the other end of my break.
Absolutely. All righty. We'll see you all later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Chip. See you guys.